Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our file transfer webinar. I'm Chris, and I'm joined by my colleague Neil.
Hi, everyone.
So Neil and I work for a company called AMS, and we've been involved in many projects over the years to implement secure file transfer into different businesses, as well as the rest of our colleagues. So today we're going to introduce ourselves as AMS, but also we're going to talk about some of the challenges that our customers have faced over the years while using traditional file transfer methods, and of course introduce our alternative to get around these issues. We will touch on GDPR here and there as well. We're not going to focus on it today because I think we're all pretty sick to death of it over the last sort of year or so. So we will touch on bits here and there. And if you do have any questions about GDPR or anything else to do with the solution or about what we do, you'll see a toolbar on the right-hand side, and at the bottom, there's an opportunity there to type in any questions that you may have. Now, Neil will do a quick demo of the solution later as well, and then I'll come back afterwards and we'll summarize with a few points and go through any questions that we have. So who are AMS? Who are we? Well, I suppose if you had to put us in a bracket, you could say that we work in secure information exchange. Now, we do a lot with secure file transfer. Obviously, that's why you're watching this webinar. But we also do a lot with electronic document management, output management, and traditionally with network and cloud secure fax solutions as well. Now, we're lucky enough to work in a wide variety of sectors. So we do a lot in the NHS, for example. We also do a lot with councils and the public sector. We work in finance, in legal, in manufacturing, and probably more recently, quite a bit in marketing, print and media as well. Now, on the same floor that Neil and I sit on, there's a support team, and we handle all of our pre and post support here at AMS, and it's something we're quite proud of, and we're very hands-on, very dynamic with that. And as well as that, we also cater for development services. So we often design bespoke applications to go alongside the rest of our solutions, as well as things like capture forms. So over the years, when we've been working on these projects with our customers, we've come across a few different challenges with traditional file transfer. And I thought it was worth just addressing some of these, just to set the scene, I suppose. Now, the first one, FTP and SFTP. Well, the first thing to mention here is, as standard, FTP is not compliant with GDPR. So if you are using FTP to send and receive sensitive data, it may be something you want to double check. Just have a look at the GDPR guidelines, just double check that you're completely covered. But the protocol itself has a few other challenges. It can be a little bit clunky, a little bit slow. For example, you quite often need a client at the recipient's end. So that's something just to bear in mind as well. Email, of course, we all use email hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. And the major challenge here really is that if you are using email, a standard email, I should say, to transfer sensitive information, you need to double check, because you really shouldn't be doing that. Of course, you know, it can use things like opportunistic TLS, but really, if you're sending anything sensitive, it shouldn't be going through email. The other challenge we find, of course, is that there are file size limitations. Many people's email is restricted to 10, 15, 20 megabytes, for example. And what we found in the past is that our prospects, when looking at this and trying to find an alternative, have been actually chunking emails to get information out of the business. Cloud sharing. Now, by cloud sharing, what we're really saying here is these very quick, usually free workaround solutions. So things like maybe a free Dropbox account or a free WeTransfer account, and they're very good at what they do. But if you're working in a corporate environment where you're transferring or sending sensitive information, you really shouldn't be using these solutions. Now, of course, as users, we're always under pressure to either get something out to a customer or get something out to a supplier. Maybe we're being pestered by someone. And what we tend to find or tend to do as users, and we're all guilty of this, is find the quickest way possible to achieve that task. And that might be using your own Dropbox or your own WeTransfer account. But as administrators, our biggest issue here really is that we have no control at all. We have no idea what the user's sending. Are they mixing up a sensitive corporate document, for example, in amongst their holiday pictures, which is reasonably common. And of course, if you do work in a sector where data sovereignty is important, maybe you need to have a UK cloud instance or a European cloud instance, then what we find is a lot of these quick workaround solutions are hosted outside of the EU. So something just to bear in mind. Removable media, becoming less common nowadays. However, we still see it at AMS. Now, if any of our NHS contacts are listening to this, they may be familiar with processes such as burning to disk, for example. But the challenges and risks with removable media are very obvious. So once you put information onto a tangible device, you no longer have control over that information. The typical things, it falls out of someone's pocket on the way to the car, it gets left on the back of a taxi, it gets left on the train. You really have no control and you have no audit trail after that information has left the organization. Postal and courier services, again, we see this every now and again at AMS, and the challenges are reasonably obvious. Obviously, it can be very slow. It can be quite costly. To give you a very quick example of that, one of our customers we worked with probably about 6 months ago now, a big NHS trust, they were spending about £100,000 a year on courier services because of the amount of information they had to get out. Obviously, that's quite an extreme example, but you can sort of picture how these costs tend to ramp up. And again, there is a slight security risk there. What happens if the information does get lost, does get stolen? Of course, you can encrypt things like disks, however, they can be cracked. So what I'd love to do now is just get everyone's opinion or the feelings of what they're actually using currently for their secure file transfer or their file transfer generally. So we're going to launch a quick poll, and if you're able just to click on one of the options or several of the options, we'll just get your understanding. We'll come back in a second and have a quick look at the results for you. Okay. Got a few results coming in. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds. Okay, just a few more. Brilliant. Okay, I think we'll have a look at those, Neil. Okay, we'll just quickly publish those. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so by the looks of it, so we've got 80% email, so that doesn't surprise me. We all use email every day, and there's no surprise why users would use email for everything they try and send in and out of the business. Again, the challenge here is sometimes there are size limitations, and of course, if it is standard email, you really need to be careful about what you're actually sending through it. A little bit of cloud sharing as well. Again, doesn't surprise me, all under a bit of pressure to get things done very, very quickly. And we tend to just find anything we can just to get that task done and dusted. And again, no real traceability or audit trail or control over what users are sending, especially with the free versions. And a bit of postal and courier actually, which surprises me. Maybe we've got a few of our NHS customers viewing this as well. And of course, we've covered some of the challenges there with the cost and a little bit of a security risk as well. But thanks for doing that, everyone. That's appreciated. We'll just hide those results. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so what are we actually talking about then? What is AMS file transfer? Excuse me. So I'd like to think we're actually quite unique. Now, what we've got is one platform with two modules. Now, the two modules are, there's one secure point-to-point secure transfer. And there's one sharing module as well, where you're able to share folders and files with internal and external users within a secure platform. Now, we have a UK-hosted cloud option, hosted in Microsoft Azure, as well as an on-premise option as well. And as standard, there's no file size or file type restrictions at all on anything you transfer or share with the solution. So what we tend to find, so bear me 1 second. Apologies, everyone. I've heard that we just stopped sharing our screen. I'll just quickly jump back a second. So what is AMS file transfer? Well, you've probably heard this already, but I'll quickly show you the points. So we are unique. We do have one platform with a secure point-to-point transfer, as well as a secure sharing module as well, where you're able to collaborate around folders and files with your internal and external colleagues. And we're UK hosted. If you're looking at the cloud option with Microsoft Azure, we've also got an on-premise option as well. And there's no file size or file type restrictions on anything you transfer or share, which is great from a solution point of view. Now, there may be a few administrators out there with alarm bells ringing in their heads, but don't worry. Of course, you can lock this down to a user level as well. The solution itself has really been designed to reduce load on IT, and Neil will touch on this in a second with some of the admin controls, but basically how it works is the administrator can set certain permission levels and allow the users to make decisions on transfers within those permission levels. As you would expect, the solution has a full audit trail and traceability of everything sent and received through the platform. And there are 3 different authentication options for users. And Neil will go into a lot more detail in a second, which will make it a lot clearer for you. But just to give you an idea, we have a login with a username and password. We've also got things like a token request and also an open link. To add to that, we can do things like a true file recall as well, and remove access to specific users after a transfer has been sent. And some of the tools you're going to see in a second, hopefully you'll agree they're very easy to use. And again, they've really been designed to encourage user adoption. Now, what Neil and I have found over the years is that when we've implemented a solution into a department, maybe with 5 or 10 users for argument's sake, is that the solution tends to organically grow. So other departments come knocking on the door and say, well, can we have an account? Can we do this? And assuming the administrator is happy with that, these solutions tend to be quite popular and then organically grow throughout the organization. Okay, so that's probably enough from me for the interim. So I'm going to pass you over to Neil to take you through the quick demo, and then I'll come back afterwards and we'll summarize some of the points.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Morning, everyone. Right, so if I just load up the main web portal. So really the aim really of this just quickly is just to show you an example of the file transfer platform and the file sharing platform, and really from both a user and client perspective, and then some of the admin functions available as well if we've got time at the end. So there are a couple of ways of being able to send a transfer, either using our web portal, which is actually cross-browser and cross-device enabled, or via using our Outlook plugin as well. So this is the main login screen of our web client. This is our demo system, so you'll see it is fully branded, which is something we can do. So we've included a logo, background image, and changed the color theme throughout as well, so the button hovers change as well. Okay, so we go ahead and log in with my account. Brilliant. So once we've logged in, you're shown really a personal overview of the messages that exist within your account. So any expiring messages within the next 7 days, how many total active sent transfers I've got visible, any unread transfers, and also the last portal web access. As Chris mentioned, there are a couple of modules within our platform. So the first being the file transfers, which is the point-to-point with expiry, and the second being the file shares, which is more of a longer-term storage area where you can collaborate on the files that you've uploaded. All access is actually centrally managed and audited, which we'll touch on later on during the demo. So if we expand My Transfers, you'll probably agree it's a familiar look and feel like an email layout. New is just to create a new transfer. So we've got an inbox where we've received files into, any sent items and drafts. The archive option is actually enabled on a user level. And essentially, once a transfer either expires naturally or if someone deletes a transfer, normally the visibility is lost from within the user account. Everything's still auditable from an administration point of view, but the archive just allows you to provide the user access to historical records. Invite user, again, when you send a transfer, it can invite users via that method, but the invite ad hoc users is really just a way of, for business users, professional users, of entering in an email address, and it just sends an invite out to those recipients to sign up to the process. Okay, so to send a new transfer, it's a case of hitting new. The first field, in fact, there are 3 steps, but the first step 1 is just entering in the recipient details. So if I click in the Enter Recipients dialog box, this list here is built up of people that I've sent to before, but also if I've got access to an address book, it's built up of those address book entries as well. So I could add Neil in from here, and if I do have access to an address book, I could also add in recipients using this as well. The good thing is we can add entries to a black or white list, so you can forcibly stop recipients from being able to send to recipients outside of a specific list that you publish to them, so you can lock that down quite easily. I'll also add in another user in here as well, just to show you during the process. The subject and notes field, so these form part of the email notification that's sent out to the recipient. So it becomes the email subject and the notes becomes the message body. And we really say just try and be descriptive here. Don't include any sensitive information that's outside of the files that you're attaching. If you do have sensitive information, we just advise you to use the secure notes option. So if you're still insistent on password protecting files, or maybe there's some personal identifiable information outside of the attachments, you're welcome to pop that in here, knowing that this information is fully secured, like the transfer, using 256-bit AES encryption, but also the data is in transit and at rest is secured as well. So we can go ahead and hit step 2 or hit next. So it's a case now of just attaching the files. Either you can drag and drop onto the web portal, or we can just come in here and find some files from our local drive, which I'm just doing now. So if you do have access to third-party products here, maybe you've got a OneDrive account or something, you can attach them from there as well. So we've got our files. On the left side, it just gives you an overview via the policy that's being assigned to you as to whether there's any restrictions in terms of how many files you can upload to a transfer, and a message size limit and a single file size limit as well. The solution is limitless in a sense where there are no file type or file size restrictions, and this is all governed by your administrator. So we've got our files uploaded. Again, we can just hit next or step 3. So the expiry date is quite key to the file transfer process. So by default, the transfer will expire within, for instance, 14 days. This is all configurable, or it's got a maximum expiry of 30 days. So once the transfer does reach that date, it does actually get deleted from the sent items of the sender, and obviously from the recipient's view as well. But that data is still available, if you like, to the administrator, so they can report on it later on. The access options, we have 3 available. These can be filtered out as well via our policies, but essentially we have login being the most secure, and this essentially forces a user to either log in with an account or sign up for a file transfer account once they hit download from the email. It's a very quick and easy sign-up process. Open link requires no authentication, and the recipients are taken straight to the files once they click download. And token is a bit of a mixture between the two. So the client or the recipient clicks on the download button, they're taken to a secure page where they request a token. It's hashed together there and then and has a 20-minute expiry. That's emailed through to them, and they can copy and paste that directly into the secure web page to view the files and content. For the purpose of this, we'll just choose login. The notification options, I'm sure you've noticed, but they're already checked. That's just because I've pre-configured them under my personal profile. So it just makes it a bit quicker next time we come to send a transfer. These are really going to notify me when a file transfer has been read, when a file has been downloaded, or when the transfer expires. So you can toggle these on and off as well. So I'll just uncheck that. And once we're ready to send the transfer, we just go ahead and hit the big Send Now button. You'll notice I'm taken straight to my sent items, ready to run through the reporting on whatever I've sent through the system. But for now, if I just sign out of here and I'll show you it from a recipient's point of view, just the login experience. So if we come through to my email, this is the email from a recipient's point of view. You'll notice that the notifications are branded, which we can do as well. They're just HTML files. The look and feel of them can be changed. We can add a logo, or if you've got a disclaimer to add on the bottom, you can do that as well. So it's just a case of hitting download now. And it's taken me straight to the login screen because I already have an account that's associated with the email. So if I hit login, and I'm taken straight through to the recipient view, and this is now where I can manage the files that have been sent through to me. So I now have access to the secure notes that were previously published by the sender. I could download all the files, which will zip them, and obviously if there's more than 10 files, for example, it makes it an easier process. And you'll notice that I do have an option to download or view the files. So if you want to download them, you just click on download, and we have this viewer option as well, which allows me to view supported file types. There's about 70+ file types that are supported, including all major Office documents, PDF, etc. And within the viewer, I do have the option to print or download as original or as PDF, and there's a search tool here as well. We do have a DRM module for those that may be interested, but it allows you as a sender to restrict the access from a recipient point of view, and whether they have to forcibly view documents in line or whether they can only download documents, and that is an option as well. So if we go back to the transfer, so that's really it from a recipient point of view using login. So if I sign out and I log back in with my original account, so if I head towards my sent items and just click in here, you'll notice as a sender I've got full visibility of what I've sent through the system. So I've got the same view that the recipient had. The Files tab really gives you an overview of everything that you've attached to that transfer. You can see whether something's been downloaded or viewed. You're able to track the movements of that, and it just gives you the sort of public IP address of the machine that's downloaded it and a date and time. And more importantly, what you can do is recall information as well. So if you no longer wanted a file to be available to the recipient, you can remove their access from that. Under the Shares tab, it will display on each row each recipient you've sent to. In my case, Neil, you can see, has viewed that transfer and the last access time. Again, these can be tracked as well. And you'll notice Chris hasn't yet viewed his. Maybe you don't want him to view it any longer, so you can also remove his access like so. If you wanted to delete the whole transfer, there's a delete option under the status panel on the right. and also you can change the expiry as well. So if you find out maybe someone's on holiday, you could come in here and just extend it or decrease it where necessary. Finally, the audit tab. This gives you as the sender full visibility of every action that's happened to the transfer during your ownership. So it's very useful in being able to sort of pinpoint information, what's being uploaded, downloaded, viewed, etc. Okay, so if I just take you through the Outlook plugin just briefly. So this is important, really. Chris mentioned user adoption before. So for some of our clients, they don't really want people trying to use a different system or have the headache of trying to train them. Obviously, we like to think the solution's intuitive, but maybe they want to use the Outlook plugin to create a new transfer instead of the web interface. So I've just clicked new transfer, which has put it into the transfer template. By the way, you could also be creating a new email as standard and switch it to a transfer message, or there are options around Outlook policies as well, where it switches it automatically based on certain criteria. So just quickly, it's a case of popping in an email address. Again, just a subject and message body like you would any normal email. And you have the access here to be able to set the authentication option you've got access to, the expiry date, add a secure note. And when attaching files, you can either attach them using the normal email attachment. But for those of you that know, there may be limitations on that. There may be a 10 or 15 meg limitation on the files that you can attach, which is why we've developed the large attachment option. And what this does, it bypasses any Outlook restrictions, and it puts these little stub files in there. So when you come to send the transfer, it securely offloads the attachments and any secure notes and uploads them directly to the secure server, and the email is sent out as yourself, so you have full visibility still within your sent items. Finally, up here we do have a folder attachment option as well, which normal email doesn't have, and that just zips the contents of the folder you're attaching. So once we're ready, just go ahead and hit send. That now gets pushed through, and it gets offloaded to the desktop app and then gets processed accordingly. Okay, so if we go back to the web interface where we'll just finish up, and I'll show you the file shares element. So as mentioned, the file shares is around creating collaborative shared areas, really, where you can upload files and create folders. So if I just create a new folder in here, and hit save. So now I've got this client B shared area. If I click into that, you'll notice it's just a blank canvas, but it's just a case of creating a new folders. So maybe it could be something like contracts, uploading files to the main root of the directory. And given the permission, you're able to move information around. So I'll just move this PDF into the contracts folder. There are tools around being able to view the files or supported file types within the inline viewer. So it's the same viewer that the transfer uses, where you have the options to print, download, etc. There's some file properties in there, and it just shows you the original author. The versioning and comments I'll just show you now. You can rename files and folders as well, and the comments really is about if you've given access to somebody else to view the share, this is where they can obviously interact with you and view the comments as well. So when they log in, they can see that there's a comment available, and they could click on that and post a comment back to you. The versioning is controlled via the check-in and check-out feature. So if I just check this document out, assuming I've made a change to it as a PDF, so obviously you'd need some PDF writer to be able to do that, but you then have the ability to check this back in. No one else with access to this, given the permission, will be able to check it back in, but you can cancel checkouts as well. And it just gives you an idea of the document that you're looking for to check back in, which I know is this one. And now when you go to view the document, it always loads the latest default version, and you can actually go back to previous versions as well and download them. So yeah, it's just a bit of file collaboration and management there. More importantly, there is an audit available as well, like the file transfer, and there are options around setting notifications. So even as the owner of the file share, I can be notified on my own activity or everyone else's as well. So you can be notified on things like files being added, folders deleted, comments being added, etc. And also update the frequency of when you receive those notifications as well, which is more important. There are settings available which are pushed from your administrator, and these can be enabled by default, disabled, or enabled with override, etc. But it just controls the size of the file share, the size of the files that you're allowed to add in, and any blacklist extensions that you're not allowed to upload to, or anyone else is allowed to upload to those files shares as well. Finally, adding users. So it's a case of just inviting users. So by default, you're an owner with full rights, so you can invite new users, you can add, edit, view the content and the audits and the settings. The next level down of someone that you invite can do everything an owner can apart from invite new users. A publisher can add and view all content but can't edit or delete. And a read-only can essentially just read or download information. So if I just add in Neil in here and just make him a read-only account. And what that will do is just send Neil an invite to view this particular share. So here's my email. You'll notice it's branded as well. So if we open that, and I'll log in with the same account that as my transfer account. And it takes me straight into the file share. You notice the advanced options above are sort of missing due to the fact I'm not an owner, but I do have access to manage my own notification options, and I can sort of view comments and download and view the data as well. Okay, there is an admin portal to the platform, as mentioned, and this really does allow you to administer the solution, but more importantly, you can run these GDPR compliant reports and audits, and these allow you to search on sent transfers, received transfers, and export data where necessary as well. But we can go over that separately. That really concludes the demo, so I'll just pass you back over to Chris, but I appreciate your time.
Brilliant, thanks Neil. Well, hopefully after seeing that, it's given a sort of better indication about what the product's about and how it can potentially be used within your business or your department or particular process you have in mind. As Neil mentioned, we do tend to brand these solutions for our customers. And the reason we do this really is for two reasons. One, because they look better. So if your customers are accessing secure documents, then obviously it's another face for the company. We can pick your logo, your colors. But the main reason really, and probably more importantly, is that it's for security reasons. So for example, if Frimley Healthcare have solicitors or a lawyer or a patient logging in to access information, they know they're logging into the correct place to get it. And likewise, if they receive an email notification from Frimley Healthcare, for example, they know that the information has come from a legitimate place and it's fully trustworthy. But that just gives you an idea of the look and feel of the portal, what it could be for your business. So on the subject of security, just a couple of points. As Neil mentioned, everything is encrypted with 256-bit AES encryption, and there's a variety of authentication and viewing options, as Neil demoed a second ago. As you would expect, the portal is secure HTTP. Now, Neil didn't really get a chance to go into the admin console, but really the administrator has the ability to do things like set different retention periods. So, for example, we have some customers allowing transfers to be around for a day and some for a year. So it can really be up to you, but also do things, manipulate notifications and the branding, for example. And really what the administrator is doing is creating permissions, but then allowing users to take control of the transfers under those set permissions. As you saw in the demo, you can get detailed information on each transaction, and again, a lot more detail in the actual admin console. The admin console also has a dashboard view as well. And the user notifications are there for all transactions and can be managed either by the user or by the administrator. Now, one thing we didn't really get a chance to show you was the legal agreement templates as well. So this is where you can ask users, whether they're internal or whether they're external, to agree to T's and C's before actually using the system or transferring information to you. So just to summarize what we've discussed today before we go on to our questions. So I think what we're offering here really is offering you the opportunity to completely secure all of your corporate intellectual property once it leaves your outbox. You can fully personalize the solution to your own, as you saw on the screenshots a second ago. And the solution has been designed to really support user adoption with the tools such as the Outlook plugin, as Neil demoed a second ago, or with the intuitive web client. And what we tend to find is that these solutions maybe start off a little bit smaller, but then organically grow throughout the organization. And hopefully, as you've seen by the demo, and what we were really trying to design when we created this was something that was very easy to use and what we call frustration-free for your employees and your colleagues, but probably more importantly, also for your partners and customers. So if you do have customers sending information into you or receiving information from you, and the process is very simple, there's very little, if any, user training, you know, it's completely secure, that does have a positive knock-on effect as well. And if you are still a little bit concerned about GDPR and you want to sort of pick our brains on this a little bit, then feel free. But this solution does cover quite a few of the articles within GDPR. And of course, we haven't really got time today, but we can talk to you about that outside of the webinar as well if you wish. So thanks again, everyone, for your time. And I really appreciate you listening today. Now, if you want to check us out, there are some contact details on the screen, as you'll see. There's our website, ams-mft.com. When you go to the website, you'll notice that the look and feel is very, very similar to this. There's also a button that looks exactly the same as this on the website. So if you do want to have a quick play around with the solution and a free trial, then feel free. Just fill in your details there, and one of us will be in contact to set it up for you and just make sure you know how to use it properly. I think what we'll do now is go through a few of the questions, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. And then if anyone we don't come to, we'll come back to later on today.
Brilliant. Okay, so how is it licensed in terms of guest accounts? Okay, so essentially, we didn't really cover it off, but there are 3 types of user accounts in the file transfer platform. The internal business users are the paid for users, if you like, and essentially they're called professional users. And we have 2 other types of guest accounts. So there's a guest sender, and these are unlimited on the platform. So a guest sender can receive from a professional user, but they can also create new transfers back into a professional user. And there's also a guest account, so they can receive from a professional user, but it's more of a read-only account, so they don't have any access to send information back again. Okay. So are there any file format restrictions? We did cover that off in the webinar, but no, unless your administrator adds sort of a blacklist extension against the policy that's assigned to a user, there are no limitations in terms of the file type or the file size.
Okay, we've got one here. Are the email notifications customizable? Yes, they are. So as Neil showed quickly on the demo, you can put your own logo in there, which again looks a lot better, but also adds an element of security to that transfer as well, because people tend to just trust it.
Is there a mechanism to automate the transfer of files? There is. What we actually have is a full RESTful API, a web API, and that with the correct development skills, we do have in-house development skills here as well. But essentially, there are ways using that RESTful API to automate the transfer of files and even via the file shares as well.
Brilliant. We've got one here from Steve. How much does it cost? We will probably do that offline, Steve. That's okay. One of the account managers will just drop you a quick line. But really, in terms of the way it's licensed, is that we tend to band it depending on how many professional users you need, so internal users to you, but there's no cost for any external users. So anyone like customers or suppliers or partners are completely free and unlimited. There's obviously difference in cost between the cloud and the on-premise as well, but one of the account managers will drop you a line after the webinar. Okay, well, I think we've got to the end of our questions. If you do want to check us out, please feel free, or if you do want an informal chat about anything we've discussed today, or just to pick our brains on something you're doing currently, please feel free. And we do appreciate your time and for watching the webinar today. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.